Good morning again. Welcome to this now bright sunny day here in Bradenton. I'm Casey Welch. I'm your current chair of the Manatee Chamber of Commerce Legislative Committee, and just want to welcome you here. It's my pleasure to welcome to the preview of this upcoming legislative session. And I want to take a few minutes to recognize some of the elected officials that are here. Some had to leave early, and some I think haven't made it yet. Obviously, Representative Rousson as well. We had Manatee County Judge Gilbert Smith. And if you want to just stand and be recognized, then we'll hold the applause to the end. Manatee County Commissioner Betsy Benak, Commissioner Vanessa Baugh, Commissioner Larry Bussell, Commissioner Chappie, see him, Commissioner Robin DiSabatino, Commissioner Charles Smith, and Commissioner Carol Whitmore. Sheriff Stubbe, I haven't seen him yet. School Board Member Karen Carpenter and School Board Member Charlie Kennedy, saw them. Mayor Wade Poston, did not see him yet. Supervisor elections, former Senator Mike Bennett. Town of Longboat Key Vice Mayor Jack Duncan. From the Office of Chief Financial Officer Jeff Atwater, Joel Brown. Hi, Joel. From the Office of Congressman Buchanan, Sally Tibbetts. And from the Office of Congressman Rooney, David Garcia. Also, since Senator Bill Galvano had a commitment in Washington, D.C. today, we have from his office, Kathy Galea and Whitney Deem. They're over there. Okay. Also want to recognize Jack Ryerson, who's on the Sarasota-Manatee Airport Authority. Thank you. And I want to take a point of personal privilege and recognize my new boss and new person in our area, Dr. Sandra Stone from the University of South Florida, Sarasota-Manatee. And also, I want to recognize my great teammates and the Chamber Commandos, the Legislative Committee, if all of them would stand up to be recognized. Saw a bunch of you. Thank you all for your help in assisting everything. We'll be going up to Tallahassee in March and storming the Capitol in a good way. I also want to thank the sponsor of today's event, Bright House Networks. We appreciate their ongoing support of this event. And again, Charles Clapsettle, thank you and your crew from METV for televising and taping this broadcast for everyone who's up late at night and want to watch this again sometime. At each of your tables, I don't know how many there are, but there are legislative priorities from our committee, and these are the priorities that the commandos will be advocating for in Tallahassee later this year. And you can go through them and talk about economic development and taxes and Anna Maria Island and things that are specific. Feel free to ask our distinguished legislators some questions about those. And without further ado, I want to introduce our state legislative delegation. Representative Jim Boyd, Representative Greg Stubbe, Representative Joe Rousson, and again, Senator Galvano is out of town. So I'll start with Representative Boyd, since he's in leadership of the House. Take it away.
Thank you. Well, thank you for that introduction, Casey. My colleague Greg is as well, as he chairs a committee this year, so we'll be looking forward to working together as we try to do what's right for Florida and for certainly for our great community. Normally, I say things that Representative Stubbe was probably going to say, or he may say things that I do, so I'll try to be a little bit brief to begin with, but then be glad to answer questions. But I'd like to give you a little bit of an overview from where I see things and a little bit of what I think is coming, and then as well speak a little bit to the priorities that the Chamber has for this year. As you know, this past year was an election year, so we, how much time do we have?
10 minutes.
Okay, good. So don't worry, don't get nervous. Judge Smith already bailed. He says, you're going first, I'm out. So. But normally we have the fall to have committee meetings, but since this was election year, we didn't have committee meetings this fall, so it all kind of fell toward the first of the year. So the first week of January, we were back, and we were up in Tallahassee for 2 weeks in January, there a week, home a week, back a week. And then February coming up, we're home this week, of course, and then February we'll be there for 3 weeks. So things are picking up speed, what I would consider somewhat dramatically, and the pace is starting to get a little bit hectic. This past Friday, the committee chairs, the subcommittees, and then up to the main committees were expected to put their work plans into the Speaker's office. So each committee chairman, all of them across the board, have ideas and thoughts and plans for the year. So by Friday, they were supposed to have those plans and their wishes and wants for this coming session to the Speaker's office. That'll all kind of get distilled down into a work plan that we'll use. This Wednesday, I believe it is, there's an AP press conference in Tallahassee where the Speaker and the Senate President will roll out, hopefully, their combined work plan, and then we'll be filling in the gaps on what the House is going to do, and of course the Senate will be doing the same thing. So while we're here early in the year, it's a little bit premature to know exactly what's coming and exactly what's going to happen. We've got a couple of good ideas on some of the bigger things, and then of course there'll be a lot of other issues that will be taken up along the way. This year, just give you a little bit about my job this year. The Speaker, Chris Foley, who is just coming in as our Speaker for the next 2 years, asked me to be the Majority Whip. So I'm now in the Majority office, and with that, thank you. Trudy, I think you started that class. I'll send you a check later. Thank you thanks very much. No, but it is a privilege, and it's an honor to be there because I get to work with all of our caucus in trying to accomplish what is important to them and as well what's important to the Speaker under his leadership. So it's a privilege to be there. It's a little bit different because every year I've been running bills since I got up there, and Bob asked me earlier, he said, well, who runs your bills, can you run a bill, or if there's something important to Manatee County, can you handle it? I can't run bills this year, nor can anybody on the Speaker's senior kind of leadership team, but we have the ability to get other good members to do things for us. So I've already got a few things that were important to our community that we've got a few of the members working on. So Manatee County, certainly with Representative Stubbe's leadership, with mine, and with Senator Galvano's, Manatee County will not go lacking because of the positions that we all have, I can promise you. So with that, I was also asked to be on appropriations, so I got Vice Chairman of Appropriations, which I think is good for our community as well when it comes to where the money's going. I'm on Regulatory Affairs Committee, which is over insurance and banking and energy and utilities, and Department of Professional Business Regulation. And also on the Ag Committee, which I asked to be on. I've been on that since I got up there, and it's just, as you know, so important to our community and to this part of the state. And then on the Rules Committee, and the rules sets the calendar and what bills go to the floor, and that kind of initiatives as we move forward. So those are my committee assignments, but primarily I'll be working on the things that are important to our caucus, to our leadership, our members that are in leadership, and to other representatives around the state. You probably have heard a little bit about the surplus that we expect to have this year, somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 billion, which is nice again that we've had that for a couple years in a row. So there'll be a lot of ask for that money is the bad thing, and there's only so much that can go around because we have been good about paying down debt, putting money away for kind of the rainy day fund, and cutting spending and taxes and the like where we can. So we'll continue to use that judiciously, I promise. A couple of the big issues I think this year, the Speaker is all about water. You probably read a lot about it, the statewide water policy. So that's going to be a big job, bringing all the stakeholders to the table that are affected by that, and that's everybody from you and I that have turned the faucet on at home, to ag, to development, to the springs, to our recreational uses of water, everything included. And then with Amendment 1 that did pass by 73, I think, % of the vote, there's requirements in that and how we organize ourselves to spend the money that will be coming in on that. So there'll be a bill, and it'll be probably a pretty big bill that will deal with just that water. Just with Amendment 1 implementation. So that's going to be one of the big issues. Education, again, is very important to all of us. We've made great progress over the past couple of years, I believe. The student funding is going to probably, at the end of this year, be the highest in the country. It's last year, I think we've made great strides in that regard, but we all recognize how important education is to our great state and to continuing bringing people in. The good news is, you read the papers and see the news reports as well, but Florida is on a fast track of growth again. So that's very encouraging. There's so many good signs that are going on around the state, and you can see, as I like to quote our Agriculture Commissioner Adam Putnam, says the state bird is back, the construction crane, because you can't go anywhere around Florida and not see cranes and building going on, which is very good. Businesses are expanding, people are working again. We're not out of the woods, we don't have it all fixed, but I think we've made great progress there. Another issue that may come up is gaming. The Seminole PAC is is up for renewal this year, and nothing has to be done. It can just go away, or it has to be amended, or it has to be tweaked or changed. And along with that, as I think we talked about last year, there's a variety of gaming interests from all over the world that think Florida is a pretty attractive place to be. So they're knocking on the doors and wanting to know what's going on there. So you may see some interest there. As far as the priorities that are important to us and the chamber, the second one on the chamber's list, I'm going to let Representative Stubbe speak to that because I believe he's all over that. Beach renourishment will still be a priority, and that will probably come as a result of this time around with the Amendment 1 implementation to make sure we continue beach renourishment. PICO funding, now that there's some money, can we do some of the old PICO funding that used to be there before? I think that's something that will be looked at. Medical residency, I've talked to the variety of hospitals in our region and the medical schools as well, and that's a big issue. And if we can continue to improve there and get medical residents here, and hopefully they'll stay here and practice here, that's very important. Economic development is always going to be big on this legislature's part. I was telling Neil earlier this past week, the Speaker appointed me to the Enterprise Florida Board of Directors as the House representative on that board. So I'm very excited to be there. I think it'll give us a chance at a seat at the table for even some more work on economic development. We've had a fair amount in this area that's been good, but most of you have met Grace Swope and Sharon Hillstrom, and our Economic Development Council works closely with that group. So hopefully that'll continue to bring some opportunity here to Manatee County. My 10 minutes is probably pretty close to being up, so I'm good. Well, I won't drag it out unnecessarily, I promise. But by and large, I think this year we've got a great chance to do some really good things in Florida. Tax cuts, I think, are still on the table and something we're looking at. The governor's rolled out his plan, but frankly, our Tax and Finance Committee would just have put their plan in, as I said earlier, this past Friday, so I don't know exactly what's happening there. But I know we're going to try to do what we can to continue to cut some of the corporate income taxes and some of the things that are burdens to businesses and to individuals in Florida. There's a lot of other things that will kind of come as a result of the big issues that we're doing. And I'd be happy to answer some questions when we're finished, and I know Greg will as well. But some of the questions that you ask, we're not going to try to be evasive on purpose, but some of it we just don't know exactly where things are going to fall because of the spot we're in this year with it just kind of ramping up. But by and large, you're represented very well, I think, in the legislature with our delegation. I think we've got a great chance to do some good for not just for Manatee and Sarasota County and the surrounding areas, but also for Florida. So I'm looking forward to this next session. It's, like I said earlier, it's starting fast and going to get faster, but would love to see you all, love to have you in Tallahassee when your schedules allow. Some of you I know are already coming up on different things, but also, we're a phone call away. And I wanted to mention earlier, before I sit down, my legislative aide, Ben Smith, you've met before, he's over at the table. So we're available, 24/7. If you need something, call us. And we're there to serve you, and we're there to help you. So let us know what's important to you, and we'll do our best to try to accommodate you. I'll be quiet, and then we'll answer some questions later. Thank you.
We're just switching mics here. Well, thanks for being here. It's always an honor and privilege to be with you today. Representative Boyd kind of hit some of the high-level stuff and what we're looking to do as we move into session this year, so I figured I'd talk about Representative Rousson. Figured I'd talk about some committees that I'm sitting on this year because I've kind of moved around a little bit, and some bills that I have, and then I'll turn it over to Rep. Rousson. He can give you an update too. I chair highway safety and waterway safety this year. Transportation has been kind of split into, transportation policy has been kind of split into two committees in the House. So anything to do with transportation, because I also sit on economic affairs, which is the big committee that is over all of the transportation issues. So in highway safety, we deal with FWC and all the waterway stuff. Anchoring and mooring has been an issue that's popped up. We'll probably do a bill on that this year. If you live on the water, there's some local municipalities that want the ability to regulate how far or where you can anchor or moor off the water. And then we're trying to look to maybe do more of a statewide policy on that. I also have the Department of Highway Safety in the purview of that committee. and all the troopers. So the Florida Troopers falls within the purview of that committee because they're under highway safety. I also vice chair health quality. It's kind of been interesting. I'm a lawyer by trade, no background in healthcare. Ever since I've been in the legislature, I've been in every healthcare committee that there is. First 2 years I was on healthcare appropriations. Last 2 years I was vice chair of health innovation. And now I'm in both of the health policy committees, and I vice chair health quality. So anything from a healthcare policy perspective would come through one of those two committees that I sit on. So anything to do with healthcare policy, I will be somewhat involved in those conversations, and I vice chair health quality, which deals mostly with DOH, the Department of Health, and then I sit on health innovation, which deals mostly with AHCA, the Agency for Healthcare Administration. So anything dealing with either one of those agencies, I'll see that in those two committees. I also have the privilege to serve with Representative Boyd on the Appropriations Committee. I've served on that full committee for the last 2 years, and as he said, it looks like we're going to have a little bump in the revenue forecasting. When we came into the fall, they were saying we'd have about $350 million in surplus, and then now they did another revenue estimating conference, and it's almost at $1 billion. It's like 800 million. You know what the change was? The big change that drove that to go up? Gas prices. Because the gas prices are now so deflated that more people are having more income to spend on other things, so that bumps up the sales price, or the income we get on sales tax. Kind of interesting how things like that can affect a budget like Florida's, and how big it can affect the budget like $500 million. So we should have a decent amount of income to deal with at the state level this year, which doesn't have the short of people coming to us asking us for money. So hopefully we can address all those concerns this year on that committee. I also sit on, I mentioned economic affairs. Well, let me tell you some of the bills that I'm carrying this year. I'll first talk about the ones you probably have not heard about in the press. One big thing that Representative Boyd talked about that has been an issue for the chamber for years has been the repeal of the commercial sales tax. I have a taxation bill that has that in it. It has the internet e-fairness legislation in it. It has cutting taxes for dock stamps for a home purchase under $200,000 or less. So if you go and buy a home for $200,000 or less, you won't have to pay state dock stamps on that. The commercial sales tax repeal, we are the only state in the country that has this tax. And for me, it's about small businesses. For me, it's about that small business being able to have a little bit of extra money to hire people to do things. And the bigger companies like Bell's and Publix, that's like a $14 million price tag a year. If that one tax goes away, that's an additional revenue of $14 million. They will open up more locations. They'll be able to hire more employees. Publix has told me they'll open up 3 new stores and hire 350 people if that tax goes away. So it has a really big implication. I first became aware of it when I actually got my legislative office, when I first got elected to the House, and I was paying $1,200 a month for rent. I got the rent, and then underneath there it said, it was like a couple $100 for a tax. And I'm like, well, the rent was $1,200. What is this? It was like, that's the sales tax on the lease. I'm like, we tax sales tax on the actual commercial lease because we don't do it for residential. So I filed the bill to repeal that. It's a big issue for the chamber, has been for the last couple of years. It's a big issue for the realtors. And so hopefully we can get that across the finish line. I did, and Representative Boyd talked about, the governor did announce that he wants to do some cuts to CST funding, but it is early. F&T, I talked to Chairman Gates, who's Chairman of Finance and Tax, and they haven't gotten their allocation yet from the Speaker to even know how much tax we'll be able to cut. So it's really kind of early and premature as to which tax cut. There will be a tax cut this year. I just don't know exactly what it's going to be, but I do have one of those taxation issues. Every year I file a piece of veterans legislation, every year. So this year, one of the biggest things that I've seen from being involved in the community is we have these veterans who come back, and they don't get, the people that want to provide the services don't have the information to who these people are to get them the information to provide them the services. There's a disconnect when veterans move back from, they get out of the service, they move to Bradenton or Sarasota, and they don't know, oh, where do I go? Where's the nearest VA clinic? Where can I go for services? I need help paying my utility bill. Well, there's tons of not-for-profits in our communities that do these type of things for veterans, but there's no avenue for these individuals to get information. Well, 2 years ago, Senator Dietert had a bill that allowed you to designate yourself as a veteran on your driver's license. I co-sponsored that legislation with her. Well, now I'm working, because I chair the Highway Safety Committee, and I have Highway Safety underneath me. I said, is there a way that we can take the information when I designate myself as a veteran with highway safety when I get my driver's license or renew? Can that information be relayed to the VA? That information then relayed from the VA to all of our local. Every county has a service office through the state VA, and then we can partner with someone in the community to get them the information that they need. So we're working on that. Highway Safety has agreed to now ask the question, are you a veteran? And if you say yes, then they'll ask you, would you like to receive information about services provided in the community? Well, one of the crux with the VA has been we don't have the money or the people to be able to get these names and addresses and then send them information. So the good folks over at Goodwill, I've had some conversations with Bob, and they have agreed to partner with me on this. So when we put the bill through, we'll be able to get this information locally, and a not-for-profit like Goodwill Industries and their veterans task force will be able to get that information to that veteran. So now I come back from Iraq or Afghanistan, I move to Sarasota, I put the little V on my driver's license. That information goes from Highway Safety to the Veterans Affairs down to the local county service organization and to a not-for-profit like Goodwill to send them that packet of information of all the things that are available for them in the community. And I think that's really important because that's what's been missing for these veterans that come home. And they need things, but they don't know where to go and get it. So thank you. You want me to, 2 more minutes? I also have some legislation as it relates to public-private partnerships. I carried a bill a couple years ago, and we're doing some implementing from what the task force recommendations came back from. Usually the Florida Chamber is very involved in those conversations and support the P3 language. And I'll talk about a couple other bills I have real quick, and then I'll hand it over to Rep. Rousson. I've filed, again, a school safety legislation I've had for the last several years, both at the K through 12 area. The School Boards Association supports it. The Florida Sheriff's Association supports it. It passed the full Florida House last year. I'm hoping through the conversations I've had with senators this year that we can get it through the Senate process this year. I've talked about that before, so I won't get into too many details, and if people want to ask questions about it after, I'm happy to answer questions about that. Some things you have been seeing in the paper is as it relates to concealed carry on university and college campuses. There's 9 states that allow it. And let me tell you exactly what it does. This isn't allowing college kids the ability to carry firearms. You have to be 21 years of age to have a concealed carry permit. You have to go through background checks. You have to go through a training course. You have to do all of those things. Most people that are 21 are, if they started college as a freshman like I did, you're a senior by now. So we're not talking about 18, 19-year-olds. This bill just passed the House First Committee this past week, and one of the things that I said in the committee was, we are okay with 17, 18-year-olds swearing an oath to the Constitution, giving them a uniform, and sending them to Iraq and Afghanistan so they can man a Humvee and have to make split-second decisions on who the bad guy is, who the good guys are, who the civilians and the women and the children are in the community. Yet they come home, they take off their uniform, they get a concealed carry permit, and they go to State College of Florida or the University of Florida, and now all of a sudden we don't trust them to carry their concealed firearm while they're going to school and make a decision to defend themselves and others. There's testimony from a woman named Amanda Collins who's gone all over the country talking about personal protection on campuses. Utah just recently repealed it, and there's tons of data that I can give you that crime rates actually go down, sexual assaults actually go down. She was actually sexually assaulted on campus, had a concealed carry permit, but didn't have it on her because law-abiding citizens follow the law. And she didn't have her firearm on at the time. She was sexually assaulted on campus and has testified before legislatures that had I had my personal firearm, that I was legally able to carry everywhere else but on a college campus, I would have been able to thwart off my attacker. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, and I'd be happy to take questions with that as we move through the process. With that, I will turn it over to Representative Rousson, who's joining us from Pinellas County.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and good morning. Nothing like getting your blood going early in the morning when you hear a representative that you have much respect for, but some philosophical differences with talk about guns in schools. And it's not about trusting an 18-year-old who's been to Iraq to make a decision split second. It's about what kind of decision will be made and where and when. And I went to see American Sniper yesterday. And it reminded me that some of our veterans, some of our war-tested veterans, are coming back with some mental wellness issues. And to allow them to bring guns in schools, it just kind of strikes at that core. So having said that, it was important for me to come here this morning because usually I'm the only Democrat standing up here. And while I model myself as a pro-business moderate in the House as a Democrat, I know that it's important to stand strong on certain democratic principles. So what I've tried to do in my 6 years in the House is stand strong on those principles, but seek common ground and stand with my fellow Republicans on those issues where we can jointly agree that it's right and wrong, it's life and death, it's not just blue and red. I serve on 4 committees in the House. I'm on Maine Appropriations with Representative Boyd and Representative Stubbe, and this will be my 3rd year on Maine Appropriations, and that means that at the end of the day, every issue of the legislature, whether it's public safety or health or education, will come before that committee, and I get to deal with it. I'm also the ranking Democrat on Justice Appropriations, and this will be my 6th year as the ranking Dem on Justice Appropriations. That's the committee that handles Department of Corrections, Department of Juvenile Justice, Guardian ad litem, all the state attorneys, all the public defenders, the entire courts operations system, and the Parole Commission, now called the Florida Offender Review Commission. And that's a pretty important agency. As you know, we're having some problems in corrections. We have our, I think, 5th secretary in 4 years. We have deaths occurring in prisons, and people, when they commit crimes, should pay the penalty, but we should care for them safely until their debt is up. And so we have some big issues coming in front of us, privatization, health treatment, and mental wellness. I think Secretary Jones told us in the last 20 years, while the prison population may have increased 53%, those with mental illness have increased 153% in that period of time, and that's a sobering figure. I also serve on regulatory affairs, which is the big reg, and gaming may come in front of us this year on that committee, and I serve on small reg, business and professional regulations committee. This year I expect a lot of work, like I've expected every year. I think water policy will be big this year. I think we have a secretary that's very concerned, a speaker that's very concerned about the environment and about water quality, especially in the springs. And as you know, Tampa Bay Water has done some great work in the last few years to get rid of the wars, the water wars that were happening between the communities in Tampa Bay. And I expect to watch some good things and big things happening there. Education spending. We have a governor that's talked about increasing education spending by $1 billion. I'm not sure where that billion is going to come from, but we're going to watch it. We're going to look for his budget to be published in the next couple of weeks. We're going to do our job as legislators to balance the budget, to hear his concerns, but we know we need to do some increased spending and not just throw money at education issues, but make sure that it's spent for the right things. The big elephant in the room is Medicaid expansion. That debt's coming due in June 30. Florida will have to pay a penalty. We extended it once, kicked the can down the road. In fact, I've read recently where 8 Republican governors are calling for tax increases in their state. And while through adjustments, the overall may be a net reduction, but they're calling for tax increases. Florida has the 3rd largest population of uninsured citizens in the country. And we could lose up to $66 billion federal dollars. And those of my colleagues in the House who say the federal government is a bad partner, we don't want to do this with the federal government. One of our representatives is always shouting, "Liberty!" on the floor of the House. But if the federal government is such a bad partner, then don't take the $24 billion that we take from them every year to balance our $76 billion budget. And I've said that. I said we need to grow some. And if we're going to bash on them like that, then let's not take nothing from them. In fact, let's just secede from the union. Not a bad idea. So as I go into this session, I think all of us are basically elected to do one of or all of three things. That is, our primary duty is to balance the budget, to look at the concerns of the governor, what he chooses, where he wants to spend money, to balance that with the concerns of our district and the concerns of our state, and come out at the end of the day with a balanced budget. And we've come a long way since 2009, when I was the lone Democrat in the House to vote for the budget. This year we had 27 Democrats in the House vote for the budget. But that's because we had an open process where many Democrats were allowed to participate in the budget, in the formation of it, in the making of it. And I look forward to Speaker Christopher allowing the same thing. Second thing that we're supposed to do is promote good policy and stop bad policy. And there are plenty of folks who will be flamethrowers. And what I've decided in my reign is to not always be a flamethrower, not just be the person who says no to this or no to that, but try to craft a compromise or craft a solution, come up with answers, as opposed to just being a member of a party that says no, 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 no. And the last thing that we should do as legislators is bring money home. We're there to balance the budget. We're there to promote good policy and stop bad policy. But where it's possible, we try to bring appropriations home for good projects. One of the things I'm proudest of is I've been able to bring back over $2.5 million in the last 3 years for the Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service. That has now expanded from St. Pete College to State College of Florida to Hillsborough Community College to Broward Community College, and we've had to turn some colleges down. And the whole concept is, rather than just parading, picnicking, partying, those kinds of things, that we really honor the legacy of the man by engaging each other in performing community service on the day of service. And I was at a church meeting last night, and I don't know about Bradenton, but in St. Petersburg, on MLK Day, on MLK Street, is the only day of the year you can smoke a joint, drink an open container of alcohol, and walk up and down MLK in front of a cop and not get arrested. And every year, like this year, it devolves into debauchery. Stabbings and shootings, and to me it's desecration to a man of peace who encouraged people by giving his life for public service. And I really hope that we're able to roll this out across the state, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, all of us giving our price, our cost to be citizens by performing public service on the King Day of Service. So those are my comments today, and I didn't mean to start out by ripping Representative Stubbe, but he's a good spirit, and we have worked together on some things, and what I most appreciate is the times he'll call me up and he'll say, "Rusan, where you stand on this?"
And he'll still vote no.
And I'll still vote no. And on that note,
thank you to all of our legislators. Now it's time for your questions, and I'm going to be moderating here since we're doing dual microphones here. So if you will stand up and raise your hand, I'll recognize you. I'll repeat the question for the microphone for METV. And if you have a specific question for a specific legislator, let me know and I'll direct them first. But if it's just a general question to the panel, we'll do some sort of switching off decorum. So
The question was why the legislature doesn't expand Medicaid. So in order to answer that effectively, I need to go back and explain 2 years ago when Speaker Weatherford was Speaker of the House. Our plan in the House, and I know Mickey knows this very well, our plan in the House was, instead of expanding Medicaid, let's expand the Healthy Choices Family Program to capture those people that would be captured by Medicaid. So if you fall between 100% and 136% of the federal poverty level, you would get captured in an existing state program. So we're not drawing down on the federal dollars, because some of the concern has been Well, the first 3 years, it's 90%. What happens after those 3 years? Because right now, Medicaid's a 50-50 match. So the concern was, well, it'll probably go to a 50-50 match. And if you see Medicaid enrollment, it's already doing this without the expansion. If we expand, how are we going to be able to pay for all of the additional people that would be on Medicaid? So the House's plan was, let's put them on the Florida Healthy Choices program that will capture people and will expand the people that would be eligible from that from 100% to 136% of the federal poverty level. Instead of putting them on Medicaid, let's give them a real insurance program. Blue Cross Blue Shield, Aetna, one of those health insurance policies, and let's let them have to pay a little bit for something. We all don't necessarily appreciate things when we get them for free. We appreciate something if we're making a small investment in a good healthcare program. And I don't know about you, but most people I've talked to would rather be on Blue Cross Blue Shield than Medicaid. So let's put them on a real health insurance program. So they'd have to pay $25 a month towards that health insurance plan. $25 a month for a top-of-the-line Aetna, Blue Cross Blue Shield health insurance, not Medicaid. That was the position of the House, was let's do that. And we actually paid for that without drawing down on the federal dollars, and we were able to pay for that in our budget in the House. The Senate had a kind of a half Medicaid expansion. They took some of the federal dollars. They dubbed it the Negron plan because Joe Negron kind of sponsored that in the Senate. We never saw that in the House. I think we're at a point now where Medicaid is still part of the conversation. We've got a little bit more money in the budget. I've heard that let's increase Medicaid reimbursement rates because that hasn't been done for 30 or 40 years. I honestly don't know from the conversations that I've had whether the House would ever fully support a full Medicaid. I guarantee you could get the votes for what I just explained to you that we voted on 2 years ago, and it passed the House. It didn't make it through the Senate. But it is, like Rep. Boyd said, it's kind of early this year. Almost every place that I have gone, I'm sure same for him too, we get asked the question, and we just don't know right now because it comes down to money. And so it's going to be done with in the Appropriations Committee and healthcare probes. So to answer your question, I don't know. I haven't heard a definite no yet on the House side. It's everybody's kind of waiting to see what the numbers are going to look like and when we dig into the appropriations process. So that's kind of a explanation as to where the House was and where we may go. I know there's votes in the House to get what we passed 2 years ago that would expand those eligibility of those folks within the 100 to 136% of the federal poverty level without expanding Medicaid. But there may be individuals in the House that would support it now. All the business groups and the hospital groups support it. And they've pushed that for the last couple of years. And I think that's one of the Florida Chamber's big thing coming this year. So I'd wait and see. You've got my cell phone. We talk on a regular basis. Keep in touch with me on it because if I see it in those health policy subcommittees, I'll let you know. But right now, I haven't heard from the leadership as to where they're specifically at on Medicaid.
And you're right to ask the question. And Representative Stubbe is right. Everywhere they go, the Republicans are asked that question. The version that was put forth in the House that the representative talks about was such a scaled-down version that it would only cover a few 100,000 people as opposed to the 1 million people that would have been covered had we fully accepted it. He's right, the hospitals want it, the chambers want it, small businesses want it, and more important than all of that, the people want it. I'm gonna make a bold prediction here. I know it's not dead in the Senate. They voted 39-0 last year for a compromise plan that would have passed if we had taken it up in the House. But I know that Speaker Christopher has a heart. Matter of fact, he brings it to work. And I believe that there are Republicans on the other side of the aisle who want this discussion in the House. And what we need to be challenging our representatives is, don't sit back and wait to hear what leadership is saying about it. Stand up and be a leader about it. And push for the debate to take place. I can't predict its passage, but I would work hard towards the debate.
What are your views on arts funding in the state budget? Rep. Wood?
Thanks for the question, and thanks for the succinct way you put it. But we did last year, as you know, we did increase funding for arts and cultural type opportunities. I don't think I am alone in that. I think all of my colleagues have supported that. As I said earlier, you know, everybody's coming with their hand out right now, and that's not a bad thing because we have a little bit of a surplus. And I know I've met with some of those folks already. I know next week, I think in Tallahassee, I've got another meeting with Florida studio down the road from us. So I'm open to it, certainly. I know there's a finite amount of money that we can spend on things, but we increased some funding last year. Hopeful that I don't think we'll take it away. Hopefully we'll be able to do a little more as we go along. But I don't think there's anybody that wouldn't support that if we have the opportunity and the money to do it.
All right, thank you, Supervisor. So you want to comment on veterans courts or care?
Well, I mean, I'm happy to. There's actually a bill right now. Representative Gates has a bill similar to the issue that you just talked about, but to get their driver's license. It's in my committee right now. They haven't figured out. Apparently, it could cause a loss of real ID funds from the feds, and so staff is trying to work with the feds right now and figure out if that would in fact trigger our loss of that. So there's a lot of issues like that. So I'd be happy to work on that. Right now, if you go in to get your driver's license because of all the things that you are required to do to show residency, one of the things you cannot show for residency is your veteran's ID, and that's what Matt Gates' bill would do. So we can work on those issues. And the veterans courts issue has been something that's been permeating for years, and we have gotten the policy in. Chief Judge Hayworth was very involved in that, and I would be happy to put some more funding to that direction because I think it's important. And that kind of ties in with a lot of the stuff that we're doing on homelessness as well.
And I too would support that. Okay, got the camera.
Sorry about that.
As the ranking Dem on justice appropriations, I've watched veterans courts as well as drug courts evolve over the years, the last 6 years, and I would continue to support that.
Thank you, sir. Okay, thank you, sir. That's from the Manatee Technical College talking about technical college funding, a proposal from the governor, and also if you just want to talk about education funding in general. You want to hit that?
Sure.
Or any of you?
The guy that's not on the education committee, but thank you, John, for that. And I know that the governor's got a bold plan for education funding this year. As I think Representative Stubbe said in his remarks, you know, we'll get that, or maybe Rusan, but we'll get that, and then we'll start to, you know, decide where we can kind of come down on the same issues. I think the House is certainly, and I would believe the Senate would be too, fully engaged in education funding. So that component of it we'll certainly take a look at. And as, you know, again, as I hate to sound like a broken record, but as the money gets spread around, there'll be hopefully enough to accommodate some of those needs as well. Technical education, I think, has gained a lot of ground since we've been in the legislature. We understand how important it is and how necessary it is in a community. So I certainly would be inclined to support you know, reasonable amounts there, and I believe my colleagues would as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. And the question was about Port Manatee issues. Representative, you want to answer?
Thank you very much, and thank you for that good question. And Representative Stubbe represents right across the street, Air Products, and I represent.
Next to you.
We bump right there. As you know, I've toured the port. There's some issues that we're working on. We're running out of time for the engagement that we have talked about for there, and so I want to, I'll work hard towards that.
Thank you. Vicki from the city of Bradenton asked about the Housing Trust Fund. Any of you have any comments on that? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That is very important. And the good news, I think, is, you know, there are lots of other advocates in Tallahassee on that. The realtors are on it, as well as some of the other business groups. So I know over the course of the downturn in the economy, a lot of money was taken away from a variety of funds. That's beginning to build back. And as certainly, I think dock stamp money, for instance, goes to the ship funding. So as that increases, there'll be some more there. But I think, I believe our legislature is certainly willing to try to do the right thing there as well. And again, it sounds so repetitive, and I apologize, but you know, as Representative Stubbe just said, once those buckets kind of, we know what's in there, we'll know what we can do. But I think there's definitely an interest in trying to increase funding and kind of get back to at least a level playing field where we started before.
The question was about CC&A and the public-private partnership bill. Yeah, I was told very early on if I had any CCNA language in any bill that it becomes highly controversial very fast because of the interest groups that are involved in that. I have the head lobbyist that's with the architects who has been trying to get me language on that specific issue. At this point, we're going to take that language probably out of the public-private partnership bill. I think I have a conference call with staff today. I had a meeting with them last week. We've been working to try to get all the language to a point where I've filed the bill, but we're trying to get it to a point where we can hear it in committee, and they're going to do what's called a committee substitute, which is basically an amendment that is going to get all the language where we need it to get. And I've been meeting with the head lobbyist for the Architect Association, and they've been trying to get me language, but so at this point, I think the CCNA language is going to come out. And then I've told the architects that the lobbyists that if there's language that will get you comfortable that you want to get back into the bill, then we'll put you back in. But at this point, the CCNA language will probably come out. And nobody else in this room probably understood a word of that, but you.
That was School Board Member Karen Carpenter. Does anybody want to talk about K-12 funding?
We talked about it before. I think it's going to go up.
Yeah, I mean, bottom line, I think it's going to go up as far as the assessments and everything that is attended to that. I talked to Chairman O'Toole, who is our colleague in the House who chairs the Education Committee, the Policy Committee, and they have a pretty comprehensive I don't know exactly what all is in it yet, but she assures me they have a pretty comprehensive education bill that's going to be coming out that addresses a lot of these things. And thank you so much for the, what'd you say, 40-something thousand emails. Ben will really appreciate that.
All right, we're going to wrap up here with some closing comments. Representative Reson, you want to kick us off on some closing comments? Are you fine?
Talk about how good we are. Talk about how nice,
How good it is working with Republicans.
It is wonderful working with Representative Boyd and Representative Stubbe. Is that what I'm supposed to say? What I would close with is, every year for at least the last 2 years, we've come across this feeding frenzy of agencies when they know there's a little bit left in the budget. And what we need is to be able to be sober and serious about how we allocate those scarce resources for the greatest good. And I truly hope that if any of you are inclined to speak out with your representatives and your senators on health care expansion, that it is truly about life and death in many of our communities. And I would ask your continued support.
Thank you very much, and as we've said at the outset, thank you for being here. Thanks for what you do in our communities and all the value you bring to us. We have a really good delegation, and we have a lot of fun with each other, but we have good, healthy dialogue and good, healthy debate. And I'm just glad that Representative Stubbe didn't get up and debate Representative Roussan on the gun issue, because that would have been probably more entertaining than all the rest of this. In a very good way. But seriously, that's what our democracy is all about. We don't all have the same ideas, we don't have the same opinions, but we work together to do what's right for Florida and our communities, and Representative Roussan is a strong part of that. I told him the first time I had the privilege of debating him on the floor that if I ever was on trial for my life, which I hope never happens, I would want him to do my closing arguments. He's just that good. So thank you for what you bring to the caucus and to the body as well. Thank you, sir. And I would just close by saying one thing, that on behalf of our colleagues, my colleagues up here in the panel, Neil Spiritus, this will be, I'm told, his last Chamber Legislative Roundtable. What I wanted to say is, many of you know this, but some of you are not old enough to know this. This is probably the 50th or so roundtable he's done. He's been, give or take. Granted, there's 2 a year, but he's been doing this for over 30 years. I can tell you, when I started, when I got on his committee as a chamber member, it just gave me so much information and so much knowledge about what's good and what needs to be done in our communities, and certainly from a business perspective. So I know the legislature is indebted to you for all of your service and for what you do. Our delegation certainly is, Neil, because you've been a great friend and you've been a tireless advocate for businesses in our community, and we appreciate that. And the good news for me is, since you won't be a registered lobbyist anymore, you can finally buy me dinner. Okay?
My honor.
I won't tell you how old I was when you started at the chamber. I know. Yeah, you know.
Were you on the Facebook?
Well, and Neil is a great advocate for all of you and for the chamber. I mean, he contacts us on a regular basis. He keeps us up to date with what's going on, and it actually we will miss him from a legislator's perspective because he's so knowledgeable and he's been at this process for so long. It's nice to have somebody that you can call real quick and discuss those issues with. With that, since I'll be the last person closing it up, I would just say this. If there's issues, concerns that you have, and I try to say this at most of the places I talk, all of us have an open door policy. There is not a single person that has contacted my office that didn't get, however they contacted us, whether it was an email, they got an email response. If they want a meeting, you can get a meeting. All of us have that open door policy. So if there's something burning in your heart and you want to talk to us about, or you think there's something important that the state needs to do, then come and meet with us. We're happy to do it, and that's our job, is to do what is best for this community and for this state. And thank you very much for coming here very early in the morning to listen to us talk. Thank you.
All right, just thank you to our legislators. Just a couple housekeeping items. You can join the Manatee Chamber for 2 upcoming special luncheons, one with the ambassador to the Cuban interest section, Jose Ramon Cabanas, on February 18th. He'll talk about trade and investment opportunities in Cuba. I'm sure Port Manatee will be on that. And also Commissioner Drew Breakspear of the Florida Office of Financial Regulation on February 27th, and the flyers are available back when you walk out. I want a special thank you again to Bright House Networks for sponsoring this event, our legislative delegation for always being gracious on their time, METV, IMG Academy for the great breakfast this morning, and of course the chamber staff for putting all this on, and thank you. So have a great day, and we'll see you next time.